Steve Jobs 1985 to 1997. Next Computer. Following his resignation from Apple in 1985, Jobs founded Next Incorporated with $7 million. A year later he was running out of money, and he sought venture capital with no product on the horizon. Eventually, Jobs attracted the attention of billionaire Ross Perot, who invested heavily in the company. The Next Computer was shown to the world in what was considered Jobs' comeback event, a lavish invitation-only gala launch event that was described as a multimedia extravaganza. The celebration was held at the Louis M. Davis Symphony Hall, San Francisco, California on Wednesday, October 12, 1988. Steve Wozniak said in a 2013 interview that while Jobs was at Next he was really getting his head together. Next workstations were first released in 1990 and priced at $9,999. Like the Apple Lisa, the Next workstation was technologically advanced and designed for the education sector, but was largely dismissed as cost-prohibitive for educational institutions. The Next workstation was known for its technical strengths, chief among them its object-oriented software development system. Jobs marketed Next products to the financial, scientific, and academic community, highlighting its innovative, experimental new technologies, such as the Mach kernel, the digital signal processor chip, and the built-in Ethernet port. Making use of the Next Computer, English computer scientist Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web in 1990 at CERN in Switzerland. The revised, second-generation NextCube was released in 1990. Jobs touted it as the first interpersonal computer that would replace the personal computer. With its innovative NextMail multimedia email system, NextCube could share voice, image, graphics, and video in email for the first time. Interpersonal computing is going to revolutionize human communications and group work, Jobs told reporters. Jobs ran Next with an obsession for aesthetic perfection, as evidenced by the development of an attention to NextCube's magnesium case. This put considerable strain on Next's hardware division, and in 1993, after having sold only 50,000 machines, Next transitioned fully to software development with the release of Next Step/Intel. The company reported its first profit of $1.03 million in 1994. In 1996, Next Software Incorporated released WebObjects, a framework for web application development. After Next was acquired by Apple Incorporated in 1997, WebObjects was used to build and run the Apple Store, MobileMe services, and the iTunes Store. Pixar and Disney. In 1986, Jobs funded the spin-out of the graphics group, later renamed Pixar, from Lucasfilm's computer graphics division for the price of $10 million, $5 million of which was given to the company as capital and $5 million of which was paid to Lucasfilm for technology rights. The first film produced by Pixar with its Disney partnership, Toy Story, 1995, with Jobs credited as executive producer, brought fame and critical acclaim to the studio when it was released. Over the next 15 years, under Pixar's creative chief John Lasseter, the company produced box office hits A Bug's Life, 1998, Toy Story 2, 1999, Monsters Incorporated, 2001, Finding Nemo, 2003, The Incredibles, 2004, Cars, 2006, Ratatouille, 2007, WALL-E, 2008, Up, 2009, and Toy Story 3, 2010. Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Ratatouille, WALL-E, Up and Toy Story 3 each received the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, an award introduced in 2001. In 2003 and 2004, as Pixar's contract with Disney was running out, Jobs and Disney chief executive Michael Eisner tried but failed to negotiate a new partnership, and in early 2004, Jobs announced that Pixar would seek a new partner to distribute its films after its contract with Disney expired. In October 2005, Bob Iger replaced Eisner at Disney, and Iger quickly worked to mend relations with Jobs and Pixar. On January 24, 2006, Jobs and Iger announced that Disney had agreed to purchase Pixar in an all-stock transaction worth $7.4 billion. When the deal closed, Jobs became the Walt Disney Company's largest single shareholder with approximately 7% of the company's stock. Jobs' holdings in Disney far exceeded those of Eisner, who holds 1.7%, and of Disney family member Roy E. Disney, who until his 2009 death held about 1% of the company's stock and whose criticisms of Eisner, especially that he soured Disney's relationship with Pixar, accelerated Eisner's ousting. Upon completion of the merger, Jobs received 7% of Disney shares, and joined the board of directors as the largest individual shareholder. Upon Jobs' death, his shares in Disney were transferred to the Stephen P. Jobs Trust led by Laurene Jobs. Floyd Norman, of Pixar, described Jobs as a mature, mellow individual who never interfered with the creative process of the filmmakers. In early June 2014, Pixar co-founder and Walt Disney Animation Studios president Ed Catmull revealed that Jobs once advised him to just explain it to them until they understand in disagreements. Catmull released the book Creativity Incorporated in 2014, in which he recounts numerous experiences of working with Jobs. Regarding his own manner of dealing with Jobs, Catmull writes, "In all the 26 years with Steve and I never had one of these loud verbal arguments, and it's not my nature to do that, but we did disagree fairly frequently about things. I would say something to him and he would immediately shoot it down because he could think faster than I could. I would then wait a week, I'd call him up and I'd give my counter-argument to what he had said and he'd immediately shoot it down. So I had to wait another week, and sometimes this went on for months. But in the end one of three things happened. About a third of the time he said, 'Oh, I get it, you're right.' And that was the end of it. And it was another third of the time in which I'd say, 'Actually I think he is right.' The other third of the time, where we didn't reach consensus, he just let me do it my way, never said anything more about it." Family. KrisAnne Brennan notes that after Jobs was forced out of Apple, he apologized many times over for his behavior towards her and Lisa. She also states that Jobs said that he never took responsibility when he should have, and that he was sorry. By this time, Jobs had developed a strong relationship with Lisa, and when she was 9, Jobs had her name on her birth certificate changed from Lisa Brennan to Lisa Brennan Jobs. In addition, Jobs and Brennan developed a working relationship to co-parent Lisa, a change Brennan credits to the influence of his newly found biological sister, Mona Simpson, who worked to repair the relationship between Lisa and Jobs. Jobs found Mona after first finding his birth mother, Joanne Sciable Simpson, shortly after he left Apple. Jobs did not contact his birth family during his adoptive mother Clara's lifetime, however. He would later tell his official biographer Walter Isaacson, "I never wanted Paul and Clara to feel like I didn't consider them my parents, because they were totally my parents. I loved them so much that I never wanted them to know of my search, and I even had reporters keep it quiet when any of them found out." However, in 1986, when he was 31, Clara was diagnosed with lung cancer. He began to spend a great deal of time with her and learned more details about her background and his adoption, information that motivated him to find his biological mother. Jobs found on his birth certificate the name of the San Francisco doctor to whom Sciable had turned when she was pregnant. Although the doctor did not help Jobs while he was alive, he left a letter for Jobs to be opened upon his death. As he died soon afterwards, Jobs was given a letter which stated that his mother had been an unmarried graduate student from Wisconsin named Joanne Sciable. Jobs only contacted Sciable after Clara died and after he received permission from his father, Paul. In addition, out of respect for Paul, he asked the media not to report on his search. Jobs stated that he was motivated to find his birth mother out of both curiosity and a need to see if she was okay and to thank her, "Because I'm glad I didn't end up as an abortion. She was 23 and she went through a lot to have me." Sciable was emotional during their first meeting, though she wasn't familiar with the history of Apple or Jobs' role in it, and told him that she had been pressured into signing the adoption papers. She said that she regretted giving him up and repeatedly apologized to him for it. Jobs and Sciable would develop a friendly relationship throughout the rest of his life and would spend Christmas together. During this first visit, Sciable told Jobs that he had a sister, Mona, who was not aware that she had a brother. Sciable then arranged for them to meet in New York where Mona worked. Her first impression of Jobs was that he was totally straightforward and lovely, just a normal and sweet guy. Simpson and Jobs then went for a long walk to get to know each other. Jobs later told his biographer that Mona was not completely thrilled at first to have me in her life and have her mother so emotionally affectionate toward me. As we got to know each other, we became really good friends, and she is my family. I don't know what I'd do without her. I can't imagine a better sister. My adopted sister, Patty, and I were never close. Jobs then learned his family history. 6 months after he was given up for adoption, Sciable's father died. She wed John Dolly, and they had a daughter, Mona. John Dolly states that after finishing his PhD he returned to Syria to work and that it was during this period that Sciable left him. They divorced in 1962. He also states that after the divorce he lost contact with Mona for a period of time. I also bear the responsibility for being away from my daughter when she was 4 years old, as her mother divorced me when I went to Syria, but we got back in touch after 10 years. We lost touch again when her mother moved and I didn't know where she was, but since 10 years ago we've been in constant contact, and I see her 3 times a year. I organized a trip for her last year to visit Syria and Lebanon and she went with a relative from Florida. A few years later, Schiavo married an ice skating teacher, George Simpson. Mona Jandali took her stepfather's last name and thus became Mona Simpson. In 1970, after they divorced, Schiavo took Mona to Los Angeles and raised her on her own. Jobs told his official biographer that after meeting Simpson, he wanted to become involved in her ongoing search for their father. When he was found working in Sacramento, they decided that only Simpson would meet him. Jandali and Simpson spoke for several hours, at which point he told her that he had left teaching for the restaurant business. He also said that he and Schiavo had given another child away for adoption but that we'll never see that baby again. That baby's gone. Simpson did not mention that she had met Jobs. Jandali further told Simpson that he once managed a Mediterranean restaurant near San Jose and that all of the successful technology people used to come there. Even Steve Jobs, oh yeah, he used to come in, and he was a sweet guy and a big tipper. After hearing about the visit, Jobs recalled that it was amazing. I had been to that restaurant a few times, and I remember meeting the owner. He was Syrian, balding. We shook hands. However, Jobs did not want to meet Jandali because I was a wealthy man by then, and I didn't trust him not to try to blackmail me or go to the press about it. I asked Mona not to tell him about me. Jandali later discovered his relationship to Jobs through an online blog. He then contacted Simpson and asked, "What is this thing about Steve Jobs?" Simpson told him that it was true and later commented, "My father is thoughtful and a beautiful storyteller, but he is very, very passive." He never contacted Steve. Because Simpson, herself, researched her Syrian roots and began to meet members of the family, she assumed that Jobs would eventually want to meet their father, but he never did. Jobs also never showed an interest in his Syrian heritage or the Middle East. Simpson fictionalized the search for their father in the 1992 novel, The Lost Father. Malik Jandali is their cousin. In 1989, Jobs first met his future wife, Laureen Powell, when he gave a lecture at the Stanford Graduate School of Business, where she was a student. Soon after the event, he stated that Laureen was right there in the front row in the lecture hall, and I couldn't take my eyes off of her, kept losing my train of thought, and started feeling a little giddy. After the lecture, Jobs met up with her in the parking lot and invited her out to dinner. From that point forward, they were together, with a few minor exceptions, for the rest of his life. Powell's father died when she was very young, and her mother raised her in a middle-class New Jersey home similar to the one Jobs grew up in. After she received her BA from the University of Pennsylvania, she spent a short period in high finance but found it didn't interest her, so she decided to pursue her MBA at Stanford instead. In addition, unlike Jobs, she was athletic and followed professional sports. She also brought as much self-sufficiency to the relationship as he did and was more of a private than public person. Jobs proposed on New Year's Day 1990 with a fistful of freshly picked wildflowers. They married on March 18, 1991, in a Buddhist ceremony at the Ahwahnee Hotel in Yosemite National Park. 50 people, including his father, Paul, and his sister, Mona, attended. The ceremony was conducted by Jobs' guru, Kobunchino Otogawa. The vegan wedding cake was in the shape of Yosemite's Half Dome, and the wedding ended with a hike, during which Laureen's brothers had a snowball fight. Jobs is reported to have said to Mona, "You see, Mona, Laureen is descended from Joe Namath, and we're descended from John Muir." Jobs' and Powell's first child, Reed, was born September 1991. Jobs' father, Paul, died a year and a half later, on March 5, 1993. Jobs and Powell had 2 more children, Aaron, born in August 1995, and Eve, born in 1998. The family lived in Palo Alto, California. A journalist who grew up locally remembered him as owning the house with the scariest Halloween decorations in Palo Alto. "I don't remember seeing him. I was busy being terrified."